The air in the deep sublevels of Station 47 was thick and cold. It smelled like ozone, fear, and old metal. It was the kind of cold that went straight through your heavy uniform and settled deep in your bones. This was the detention zone, a place the soldiers called the cage because nothing in it was ever friendly. Deep inside this zone was cell block 7, the farthest, darkest corner of the entire facility. If you walked down the main corridor, you would hear the loud hum of the emergency force field generators everywhere. But when you got close to cell block 7, that hum was drowned out. It was replaced by sound, a deep, throbbing sound that felt more like a vibration in your chest than an actual noise. It was the sound of what they called the beast. The beast was not just another prisoner, not a smuggler or a captured enemy pilot. The Coalition Command had given it a special name, the Xylos Prime Specimen, but everyone who had seen it, or more accurately, heard its screams, just called it the monster. For 3 weeks, the beast had been locked inside that single, reinforced cell. During those 3 weeks, it had destroyed 2 monitoring drones, ripped apart the titanium feeding grate, and sent 3 highly trained alien guards to the infirmary with injuries that required immediate surgery. They were not injuries, they were warnings. The Coalition knew they couldn't hold it forever. That was why today was important. The official order was clear. The Xylos Prime Specimen was scheduled for immediate termination, or sacrifice, as the High Command preferred to call it. It had been deemed too dangerous, too costly, and too unpredictable to keep alive. The execution squad would arrive at 0400 hours. That was in less than 1 hour. A lone figure moved down the dark corridor towards cell block 7. His boots made soft, rhythmic clicks on the metal floor. This was Officer Kale, a human. He wasn't part of the execution squad. He was just a standard security officer. His job was to make sure all systems were green before the team arrived. A simple, final check. Kale was young, maybe 25. His uniform was clean, and his face was calm. Too calm for a man walking toward a creature that was about to be destroyed. The other officers, mostly tall, bulky aliens, always hurried past cell block 7, holding their weapons tighter. Kale did not hurry. He stopped right in front of the cell door. It wasn't really a door, it was a massive, thick plate of gray metal with 3 layers of energy shields shimmering over its surface. He could hear the beast clearly now. The sound was a mix of a low growl and a high-pitched, frustrated clicking noise. It sounded in pain, maybe, or just pure rage. Kale reached out his gloved hand and touched the cool metal of the outer door. He knew the security cameras were watching him. He knew every action he took was being logged on the main server. He took a deep breath. He pulled out his standard-issue datapad and tapped in his access codes. The screen flashed green, confirming his identity. He saw the final status report for the specimen. Hostile, extreme danger, termination imminent. He should have just signed the checkbox, confirmed the cell was secure, and walked away. That was his job. But Kale did not sign the box. Instead, his eyes were drawn to a small, secondary keypad on the wall. This keypad controlled the main door lock, a mechanism that was supposed to be accessed only by 2 senior officers simultaneously. He had the master code from the daily maintenance log, a code he shouldn't have known, a code he definitely shouldn't have used. His heart started beating faster, not from fear of the beast, but from the fear of what he was about to do. He was about to break every rule in the book. He looked around quickly. The cameras were there, silent witnesses. He took another, deeper breath and slowly, deliberately punched the long, complex code into the keypad. Click, click, clack, clack. Each key press sounded extremely loud in the silence of the corridor. The main screen above the cell door flashed an angry, pulsing red color. A robotic voice filled the hall. Warning, manual override detected. Cell block 7 seal integrity compromised. Please revert. Kale ignored the voice. He pressed the final button. With a huge, groaning sound, the massive metal door began to retract slowly into the floor. The energy shields flickered and died. A blast of hot, foul air rushed out of the cell, carrying a smell of musk and something metallic like blood. The darkness inside the cell was absolute, but Kale could see 2 large, glowing eyes deep inside the gloom. They were yellow, fierce, and full of hate. Kale stepped forward, ready to enter. The robotic voice screamed one last warning. Intruder alert. Unauthorized entry. Emergency lockdown initiated. The sudden, heavy clang of the massive door sealing shut was deafening. It cut Kale off completely from the safety of the corridor. He was alone now, suspended in a thick, terrifying silence that followed the beast's monumental roar. The cell was a cube of pure shadow, designed only to hold, not to comfort. Kale's personal light on his chest armor was the only source of illumination. It cut a weak cone of yellow light through the oppressive gloom. And in that light, he saw it, the Xylo's prime specimen. The monster was not just large. It was immense. It filled the space, hunched over in a posture that suggested both great pain and explosive power. Its skin was a dark, obsidian color like cooled volcanic rock, and it was covered in jagged, natural plates that looked like ancient, broken armor. It had 4 limbs, thick as tree trunks, ending in claws that could probably tear through the ship's hull. But the most terrifying features were its eyes. The massive yellow orbs glowed with an internal, furious light. They were fixed on Kale, studying him with the intensity of a laser. The air felt heavy, almost liquid, with the creature's hot, uneven breathing. Every shallow inhale sounded like sandpaper grinding on stone. Every exhale was a blast of sulfurous, stale air. The beast was ready, its powerful shoulders tensed, its great head dipped low, preparing for the lethal, fast charge that had hospitalized those 3 alien guards. Kale knew the script. Every rule of survival in the Coalition said, draw your energy rifle, aim for the head, and fire until the target stops moving. That was the military way, the safe way. But Kale was not following the military script. That was why he was here. The beast shifted its weight, a warning tremor running through the metal floor. The attack was seconds away. Kale did the unbelievable. He relaxed his stance. He took his hand away from the stun pistol holstered on his hip. He made himself small, non-threatening. "Hey, big guy," Kale murmured, his voice low, steady, and utterly human. He spoke like he was talking to a dog that had gotten loose in the park, not a creature scheduled for sacrifice. He slowly reached into the small utility pouch strapped to his thigh. His movement was excruciatingly slow, every millimeter calculated. He knew that any sudden motion would be met with an immediate, violent response. The beast watched the movement, its head tilting slightly. The action was predatory, yet there was a flicker of confusion in its bright eyes. It had expected a weapon, a fight. It had not expected this gentle, almost apologetic slowness. Kale's fingers closed around something hard inside the pouch. He pulled it out, holding it up clearly in the dim light. It was not a grenade, not a sedative dart, and certainly not a gun. It was a compressed, highly nutritious Terran protein bar, a sweet, sugary ration bar that tasted like maple and oats, a comfort food from Earth. The beast's immense nostrils flared, taking in the alien scent. The pure rage in its eyes lessened, replaced by a momentary, confused pause. Kale took another deep breath, his heart thumping hard against his ribs. He took 3 slow, deliberate steps forward, reducing the distance between them. He was now dangerously close, well within the beast's striking range. He gently, almost reverently, placed the small, shiny silver packet on the cold, dirty floor. He pushed it forward slightly with the tip of his boot, an offering, not a challenge. Kale immediately pulled his hand back and retreated 2 steps, putting distance between himself and the food. He was signaling surrender, telling the beast, "This is for you. I want nothing from you." The tension in the cell was unbearable. The air was thick with it. The beast remained frozen, its great body vibrating slightly. Its attention was completely locked on the small, insignificant object lying on the floor. It had faced energy weapons, metal nets, and soldiers screaming threats, but it had never faced a silent gift. The seconds stretched into an eternity. In Kale's mind, he had already lost the gamble. The creature would ignore the food and simply attack the intruder, proving everyone right, that it was nothing but a killer. But then the monster moved. It did not attack Kale. It did not roar again. The beast slowly, cautiously, lowered its massive head. Its glowing yellow eyes never left Kale's face, but its snout moved toward the protein bar. It wasn't sniffing aggressively, it was sniffing tentatively, like a scared, hungry animal. And as the terrifying Xylos Prime specimen finally nudged the small silver packet with its nose, a low, rumbling sound came from its throat. It was not the sound of fighter, it was the sound of deep, overwhelming hunger. The cell was absolutely silent now, a profound stillness settling after the tension broke. The only sound was the beast's low, rapid clicking noise as it carefully handled the protein bar. It wasn't chewing aggressively. It was devouring the small morsel with a speed born from true, desperate starvation. Kale watched, his heart rate slowly returning to normal. He stood perfectly still, letting the creature have its moment. The beast finished the bar in 3 massive gulps. The tiny silver wrapper fell to the floor, instantly forgotten. Then, it raised its gigantic head, and its luminous yellow eyes met Kale's gaze once more. This time, the look was different. The pure, unbridled hatred Kale had seen moments ago was replaced by a strange mix of confusion and guarded interest. The beast was processing the fact that the creature standing before it had offered sustenance instead of a bullet. Kale took this critical moment to speak again. His voice was gentle, almost a whisper. "They forgot to feed you, didn't they, buddy?" The word "forgot" hung in the air, a simple, damning accusation. The Coalition had classified the Xylos Prime specimen as a relentless, intelligent predator. They had spent millions on reinforced cells and energy shields, yet they had failed the most basic test, observing why a creature was distressed. Kale realized the shocking truth that none of the alien officers had grasped. The beast's aggression wasn't malice. It was panic. It was trapped, wounded, and famished. Its terrifying roars were not battle cries. They were calls of distress, amplified by hunger and pain. This was the core of human superiority, the true essence of HFY. The ability to see beyond the fear and the armor, to look for the underlying vulnerability. Kale reached into his pouch again, much faster this time, but still avoiding any sudden, sharp movements. He pulled out not 1, but 3 more protein bars. He knew he was giving away his emergency rations, the food he was supposed to keep for a 3-day survival scenario, but this was a survival scenario for a creature that deserved better. "Here," Kale said softly, stepping forward another foot. "No more hungry." He placed the 3 bars slightly closer to the beast, and this time, the creature's reaction was immediate and less guarded. It extended its long, powerful snout and gently swept the bars toward itself. It didn't snatch them. It gathered them. As the beast began to eat the second round of food, Kale finally allowed himself to move, not toward the creature, but sideways, toward the wall. He wanted to give it space and observe its entire form. The way the beast ate revealed its weakness. Its massive body was rigid, not flexible, and it chewed slowly, almost painfully. Kale noticed something else, too. The creature kept leaning slightly to its left, an unnatural movement for a being of such symmetry and power. Kale's eyes narrowed, his military training taking over, but not in a fighting way, in a diagnostic way. He was looking for damage, not for a weak spot to exploit. He focused his chest light beam onto the creature's left side, just behind its massive shoulder plate. And there it was, the horrific, undeniable evidence that proved Kale's hypothesis. Hidden by the darkness, just where the rough hide met the lower body, was a deep, ragged wound. It was an old injury, angry and red, leaking a thick, dark fluid that wasn't blood, but something sticky and infected, a poorly treated burn or energy blast injury. The beast was not aggressive because it was evil. It was lashing out because it was constantly, intensely suffering from a raw, festering wound that had gone untreated for days. The Coalition had only seen a threat to be eliminated. Kale saw a patient in agony. The realization hit Kale with the force of a punch. They had scheduled an execution for a creature that needed a doctor and a meal. He pulled out his datapad again, not to check security logs, but to quickly access the local medical database. He needed to identify the alien's anatomy and what kind of medical treatment it might tolerate. The beast finished the final bar and looked up at Kale. Its glowing eyes held a new light. It was a look of exhausted understanding. a silent plea for the pain to stop. Kale stared back, his human compassion overriding all fear and military protocol. "Don't worry," he whispered, his voice steady with a newfound purpose. "We're going to fix this. You're not dying here today." Kale knew time was his greatest enemy. The execution team was due to arrive any minute. He had to work fast, but every move he made had to be slow, deliberate, and non-threatening. This was a surgery performed under the gaze of 1,000 pounds of pure muscle and teeth. He quietly knelt on the cold metal floor. He pulled out a sterile syringe filled with a powerful, fast-acting local anesthetic, a painkiller used for large human trauma. He also retrieved a roll of thick synthetic bandage and an antiseptic gel. The beast watched Kale's preparations, its large head resting low. It was no longer roaring or clicking, but a deep, constant rumble resonated in its throat, a low sound of caution mixed with fatigue. Kale looked directly into the glowing yellow eyes. He spoke in a soft, steady voice, maintaining the eye contact that military guides strictly warned against. "I know you hurt, big guy," he said. "I have to make it stop. This will sting, but it will help, trust me." He moved his light beam to focus precisely on the infected wound on the beast's flank. The sight was worse up close. The edges were black and swollen, clearly poisoning the creature's system. The true test of trust came now. Kale needed to reach past the creature's defense mechanisms. He needed to physically touch the injury. He extended his left hand slowly, deliberately ignoring the syringe he held his right. His left hand, empty and open, moved toward the beast's massive head. The gesture was pure vulnerability. The beast reacted instantly. A low, chilling growl ripped from its throat, showing a flash of razor-sharp teeth. It pulled its head back slightly, a clear warning. The tension in the small room snapped back, dangerously high. Kale stopped, his hand hovering just inches from the creature's snout. He did not flinch. He waited, allowing the beast to register the non-hostile nature of his hand. After what felt like an hour, perhaps only 10 seconds, the beast lowered its head slightly. The hunger was gone, replaced by a painful curiosity. Very, very gently, Kale's fingers made contact with the beast's rough, plated forehead. It was a tentative, almost hesitant touch. A shock of surprise ran through the beast's massive frame. The rumbling growl instantly stopped. The bright yellow eyes blinked once, slowly. This was entirely new. No one had ever touched it with gentleness, only with weapons or restraints. Kale began to stroke the thick hide behind the creature's ear plates, simple, rhythmic human motions, the ancient, primal comfort of a pet. And then the miracle happened. A sound replaced the fear and the hunger. A deep, vibrating noise started in the beast's chest and resonated through the floor and up into Kale's own bones. It was a low, resonant purr, a sound of animal contentment, huge and powerful, but utterly harmless. "That's it, good boy," Kale whispered, using the simple, universal language of earthly connection. With the beast momentarily mesmerized by the comfort, Kale seized the moment. He swiftly but carefully moved his right hand toward the flank, locating the least sensitive spot near the wound. He injected the painkiller quickly and efficiently. The beast tensed once, a sharp twitch of pain, but did not thrash. It looked back at Kale with a puzzled, wounded expression. "Sorry," Kale murmured, applying the antiseptic gel. "It's done now." As the medication began to take effect, the rigidity melted away from the beast's posture. Kale continued to stroke its head, now moving his hand down the creature's immense neck. He was literally petting a creature that the entire galaxy had voted to execute. This was the supreme act of HFY, the ability to choose compassion, not confrontation, to trust instinct, not protocol. The creature eventually settled its heavy head completely onto the floor, its eyes half closed, clearly feeling relief for the first time in days. It was asleep, or at least deeply sedated by the calm and the drug. Kale knew he had only a few minutes before the painkiller wore off and the execution team arrived. He had achieved trust. Now he had to achieve freedom. With the beast successfully calmed and the local anesthetic working its miracle, Kale had a brief, precious window of time, he quickly unrolled the heavy-duty sterile bandage and began the complex task of cleaning the wound. The sheer size of the injury was alarming. It wasn't just a surface cut. It was a deep, jagged tear. Cale used his medical tools to gently remove the dark, infected residue. As he worked, his chest light illuminated the area clearly, and that's when he saw it, something that made his blood run cold. Deep within the wound, lodged against the beast's bone structure, was a tiny, melted piece of metal. It was barely the size of Cale's thumbnail, but its composition was instantly recognizable to anyone who had served in the Coalition's detention facilities. It was a fragment of a Coalition-issue energy containment tag, a device usually implanted in high-value, highly dangerous prisoners to track, and if necessary, subdue them with a controlled energy pulse. Cale gently used fine tweezers to extract the fragment. The metal was fused and scorched, showing signs of having been violently expelled. "Oh, you poor thing," Cale whispered, the realization hitting him with devastating force. The Coalition hadn't just forgotten to feed the beast. They had actively tortured it. The beast's initial injury hadn't been an accident. It had been an intentional discharge of the tracking tag's energy pulse, a brutal disciplinary measure gone wrong. The intense pain from a shock, coupled with the infection festering in the wound, was what had driven the creature into a frenzy of blind rage and fear. The official report read, "Specimen exhibited extreme aggression, requiring immediate restraint and subsequent termination." The truth was, the Coalition tortured a starving animal, causing a severe, agonizing injury, and then, fearing their mistake would be exposed, decided to execute it to cover up the crime. Cale felt a surge of pure, icy fury. This was not military protocol. This was moral bankruptcy. It fueled his actions with a new, stronger purpose, not just rescue, but retribution for the betrayal done to this innocent, suffering being. He finished cleaning the deep wound, applying a powerful regenerative gel and securing the area with a broad, professional bandage. The creature's breathing was now slow and steady, a sound of deep, true rest. As Cale was sealing his medical kit, the silence in the cell was violently broken. The emergency alarm system suddenly screamed to life, louder than before. A cold, synthesized voice echoed through the station's loudspeakers, audible even through the sealed metal door. "Attention all personnel. Execution Team Gamma 9 is approaching Cell Block 7. All security officers must vacate the area immediately." Cale checked his chrono. 3:58 hours. 2 minutes early, they were rushing, eager to finish the job. He had no time left. The door would be opening soon, and he would be caught standing over a highly illegal medical operation on a condemned prisoner. His career, his freedom, and possibly his life were over if he was found. He looked at the huge, peacefully sleeping beast, the great head resting on the cold floor, its deep purr rumbling softly. He couldn't abandon it. Cale knew there was only one way out of this facility that bypassed the main exit, a route so dangerous and small that no one would ever suspect a creature of this size could use it. He scrambled quickly to the far corner of the cell, using his tool to pop open the heavy, latched grate covering the main ventilation shaft. The opening was surprisingly small, leading into a maze of ducts and narrow tunnels. "Wake up, buddy," Cale whispered, urgently but gently patting the beast's neck. "Time to go. We don't have time for a full goodbye." The beast stirred, its yellow eyes blinking open. The fear was gone. Replaced by the trusting calmness Cale had earned, it looked at the narrow, dark opening Cale was pointing at, and then back at the human, a moment of confusion flickering in its gaze. His synthesized voice in the corridor was now counting down. "Execution Team Gamma 9 arriving in T-minus 45 seconds. Cale had to get the beast moving now. He pointed urgently at the small, black ventilation shaft opening, barely large enough for the creature's thick shoulder. "Go, through there. It's the only way, quickly." The beast, though clearly confused by the cramped tunnel and the sudden rush, showed no fear towards Cale. It trusted the human who had ended its agony. It looked at the narrow opening, then back at Cale, waiting for a command. Cale understood. The creature was used to being led, not making independent decisions. "You first," Kale urged, stepping back against the far wall. "I'll follow your scent." With a massive, fluid movement that showed its true, terrifying strength, now controlled by trust, not rage, the beast began to force its body into the opening. The grating metal edges scraped against its thick, plated hide, making a high-pitched, desperate sound that was instantly covered by the louder approaching footsteps outside the main door. The door panel began to hiss, the sounds of the hydraulic locks disengaging. The beast struggled, its bulk momentarily jamming in the shaft. Kale rushed forward, not to push, but to quickly apply a smooth, frictionless biogel from his maintenance kit onto the rough edges of the shaft. "Push now, push," Kale commanded, his voice sharp with urgency. With a final, desperate surge of power, the beast popped through the narrow opening and disappeared completely into the blackness of the ventilation system, leaving behind only the rich, earthy scent of its hide and a few flecks of dark, shed skin. The main cell door began to slide open, a loud, slow, grinding sound of finality. Kale scrambled back, pulling the heavy grate over the shaft opening just as the door finished its descent, revealing the hallway. Standing there were three massive, armored alien soldiers. The execution team, their faces were hidden behind dark visors, and their heavy energy rifles were raised, ready to fire. "Officer Kale," the leading alien commander barked, his voice distorted by the helmet's speaker. "What in the void are you doing inside a sealed death cell? Where is the specimen?" Kale stood empty-handed, directly in front of the ventilation shaft. Pretending to look surprised, he used his best, most innocent voice, a voice trained for routine security reports. "Commander, thank the stars you're here. The system went haywire, the lock disengaged on its own. I barely made it inside when the alarm went off." The commander stepped fully into the cell, his rifle scanning the empty room. The space was immaculate, except for the tiny silver protein wrappers on the floor. "Lies, human," the commander growled. "The log shows manual override was used. And where is the specimen?" "The room is empty." Kale maintained eye contact, performing the greatest bluff of his life. "Empty? Impossible. Sir, it must be cloaked. It must be a stealth predator. This cell is bugged. It must have activated its camouflage and is waiting for us. I think it's still here." The three soldiers instantly tensed, their rifles pointed everywhere. Cloaked aliens were far scarier than caged ones. They began slowly searching the corners, their attention diverted from the walls and the floor. Kale's heart was hammering. He knew his lie would only hold for seconds. Suddenly, the beast's low, resonant purr, the same sound of trust and contentment Kale had earned, came echoing down the ventilation shaft. It was faint, distant, but undeniable. The commander froze, his head snapping towards the wall, just behind Kale. The sound was like a low-frequency roar traveling through the ducts. "What was that noise?" the commander demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. It sounded like a creature. Kale knew it was over. The beast, still half-sedated by the painkiller, had made a critical mistake. He looked the commander dead in the eye, and instead of surrendering, he did the final, defining act of HFY. Kale slammed his fist onto the nearest emergency panel, not the one that opened the door, but the one that controlled the main station power grid. "Gotchum!" The lights in cell block 7 died instantly. The emergency shields flickered into oblivion, and the entire detention level plunged into absolute pitch-black darkness. Station-wide power failure. "Move! Move!" The commander screamed in the chaos, his focus shifting completely from Kale to the immediate danger of every other prisoner potentially escaping. In the deafening darkness, Kale didn't wait. He quickly opened the ventilation shaft again. He had completed his mission. The creature was free, and he had created the perfect diversion for its escape into the vast maze of the station's ventilation system. The detention level was pure chaos. The emergency lights, weak and red, cast long, panic shadows as the alien soldiers rushed past Kale. Try to contain the station-wide power failure. The commander found Kale exactly where he had left him, standing calmly in the open cell of the vanished beast. The commander's voice was cold, his anger absolute. "You are under arrest. Officer Kale. Treason. Sabotage. Where's the specimen?" Kale allowed the alien guards to roughly place magnetic handcuffs, on his wrists. He didn't resist. His job was finished. He looked directly at the furious commander, his face serene. "The specimen is gone, Commander," Kale stated, his voice quiet but firm. "And you will never find it, because you were looking for a monster, and I found a victim." The commander didn't understand. He only saw failure, a dangerous loose end, and a human traitor. You threw away your career, your life, for a beast that would have gladly ripped your throat out. Kale smiled, a gentle, genuine human smile that confused the alien even more. "Perhaps, Commander," he replied, "but I learned something today. I learned that your vast coalition, with all its shields and weapons, could not defeat a creature's hunger, nor its pain." Kale was taken away, locked into a solitary holding cell, stripped of his rank and honor. The official reports were quickly filed. Officer Kale succumbed to extreme emotional distress and aided the escape of a dangerous specimen. But Kale didn't care about the records. He had acted on a truth deeper than military law, the HFY legacy. The story, however, did not end in that dark cell. Out in the vastness of the galaxy, the whispers began. The execution team's report about the purring sound and the sudden, inexplicable power failure was dismissed as hysteria, but the story of the lost Xylos Prime specimen became a legend among the station maintenance crews. The real conclusion of Kale's brave, foolish act was written days later, hundreds of light years away. A small, isolated mining outpost reported a strange event. Their supplies were low, their automated farms were failing, and they were facing starvation. Then, one evening, a massive, dark shape appeared outside their compound's perimeter. The miners, terrified, prepared to fight, but the great creature, with a visible, newly healed scar on its side, did not attack. Instead, the beast spent the night defending the small outpost from the local, truly vicious predators. It brought back large quantities of freshly hunted game, depositing the kill gently at the outpost gate. The miners, remembering the old Terran tale about a beast that was only hungry, cautiously accepted the gift. The beast stayed for 3 days, ensuring the miners were safe and fed. Before vanishing back into the wilds, it never hurt a single soul, yet its simple act of providing food saved the entire colony. The coalition eventually tracked the beast's location, sending out a massive search party, but the miners, now loyal to their silent, powerful protector, refused to cooperate. They lied to the authorities, calling the beast an ancient guardian spirit. Kale had been stripped of his duty, imprisoned for treason by his own side. But his act of simple kindness, that single, soft moment of giving food and a pet to a creature others wanted to sacrifice, had ripple effects across the stars. He had sacrificed his freedom to prove that even the most feared monster could respond to kindness. That was the meaning of true HFY. Not that humans could fight the hardest, but that humans were the only species in the known galaxy willing to try understanding before destroying.